The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Maynard Bangs presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Bangs.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus Demolition Man, a 1993 action sci-fi film that hurls modern-day cop John Spartan into the not-too-distant future to face off against his nemesis, while also unraveling a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top, which most conspiracies do. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we're here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always, in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Hey, Dylan.
Yeah, Ben?
Yesterday I got gas for $1.79.
Really?
Yes, I went to Taco Bell.
Oh.
Hello, yes, I'm Ben Haslar, and for my opening statement, I'm going to tell you some things you didn't know about Taco Bell. Did you know that Taco Bell started as a hot dog stand called Bell's Drive-In 1948, and it wasn't until he borrowed the concept of the hard-shell taco from a restaurant across the street that he rebranded to Taco Tia, El Taco, and eventually Taco Bell? And through the years, it has tried to relaunch multiple times in Mexico, but all closed within 3 years because the Mexicans do not like Taco Bell. And in the movie Demolition Man, the futuristic logo for the brand was drawn up that they liked so much, it became the basis for the logo that they use today. That's life imitating art, if you can call Demolition Man that. My boggle with this movie is it has to be the most shameless product placement in cinematic history. Taco Bell is so great in the future that every restaurant is Taco Bell. No friggin' way, my friends. I bet if Stallone would have walked into that bathroom there, he would have seen at least 27 seashells on that wall. Demolition Man is a movie... Pause for laughter. I love it. Demolition Man is a movie that came on the tail end of the big manly men action movie trend with actors like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Norris, and many others, and they were rightfully ignored as the box office of being unjustly gaining a sort of cult following in years since. For my argument, jury members, it's this. Anything you perceive as being smart and self-aware or poking fun at the manly men genre is entirely accidental. This wasn't what they were shooting for. Stallone 100% thought him dropping from a helicopter on a single strap, running from explosions were just as cool in the film as any other film that he did in the 80s. And even if it were self-aware, it's done so in a Gremlins 2 Spice World-esque kind of fashion where it's trying to have it both ways, and I will not stand for it.
Well, I know that's Burger King where you have it your way, Mr. Haslar. Now, appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Simon Majumdar. Please present your opening statement.
I'm coming into this courtroom to defend Demolition Man, because not only do you have Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes coming together, and they are the best, I think. Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger might be, but they're the two best action stars of that period. But beneath that, you have Sandra Bullock, and for my think you have Nigel Hawthorne, who I will say he hated doing this film, but he played it brilliantly. And what most people don't know is he was a star of a sitcom in England called Yes Minister, and he had that ability to play that comedic style. We had Benjamin Bratt, we had Dennis Leary, we had Glenn Shaddix, we had Jack Black. We have this amazing cast. Let's see. We also have the humor. Now, you may be mentioning humor as if it's a bad thing. The humor here, I think, is exceptional. the mention of Arnold, the mention of Taco Bell, which actually in Europe we named Pizza Hut because we didn't have Taco Bell here. So I remember it being Pizza Hut when I first saw it in England. We talk about all of those things in the humor, which again, people like Nigel Hawthorne are so good at doing. We've got everything about this show is coming true. We've got Taco Bell rising and rising, but we also had. We did.
This is not the future I want to live in.
but we do. We had the COVID where everyone was sitting at home, not touching anyone, and that was due to this. The next thing is we've got Marco Brambilla, who is this great director, or he was then. That was his first. That was his first film, and now he's become this special artist. And he's moved away from films. But this was his first film, and everything he had went into this film. And the next thing, I think, is a sequel is being promised. And I think that is telling us something as well. So this film has lots and lots and lots of all the plus points going on for it. That'll be my
all right.
That'll be my defense.
Well, that's your opening statement.
My opening statement, sorry.
You'll build on more. Thank you, Mr. Majumdar. Mr. Haslar, please proceed with your first exhibit.
I find it ironic that after criticizing the Eternals for feeling like an eternity, Simon has the audacity to come along with us with this 2.5-hour long Stallone movie with no nuance to it at all. It's just 2.5 hours of Stallone being awesome. He plays John Spartan, and yeah, that's a real name. Does he have a flaw? He can execute people at far range with just a handgun. Hardly anyone can land a punch on him. You can put him dead center in a room with flaming gasoline that blows up an entire building, and he walks away with just a smear of ash on the side of his face. He's nothing but machismo. Even Superman has kryptonite, my friends. He's strong enough to rip the claw of this giant crane arm right off. He plays into these manly men tropes as well, where he just knocks out Sandra Bullock at the end for no real great reason at all, other than the script says Stallone has to fight Snipes one-on-one. Why knock her out? She can fight. She's proven she can fight. She knows about the future and how all these devices work. She would have been a big help in that room. But no, Stallone's a big manly man, and big manly men protect their women. And of course, she quickly forgives him at the end. Hold on.
Okay.
And she quickly forgives him at the end with some mouth fluid transfer because he's so manly and so irresistible. I passed the defense.
Yes, Simon, I'd like to hear something about a defense of punching Sandra Bullock in the face.
Well, I don't agree with that, of course. But that is, you're looking at that in the film. You're not looking at that in real life. So I think you move that out to the side because I don't think anybody punched Sandra Bullock in the face. So I think you just need to move that apart. So I don't know. Should I come back with my defense now of the cast and
with the rebuttal to the manly menness?
Yes. So first of all, Sly Stallone is playing himself. He's playing this character. This is not about who he is outside. This is in this role. He is playing this determined person in this role. So I don't think that comes at all about that. And that happens all the way through the cast. They're all playing people who are like what they are. And that's the key here. They're all playing it in a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? They all know what they're doing. And I think in that case, Sylvester Stallone is playing it perfectly. And I think that is true of all the others. If I can just come back, let's talk about the cast. Wesley Snipes is playing it exactly as you would imagine Wesley Snipes. So they come together, they have a battle. Sandra Bullock is magnificent in this film. She allows herself to be, and she's a very, very brilliant woman, and she allows herself to just go into this very simply, and she doesn't understand what these two from the past centuries have done before them. I still think, and we'll mention Nigel Hawthorne, he is, to me, one of the great characters of this, even though he's he plays a role that's very low for him. I think he comes over and his role in this is perfect. You know, you've got Jack Black in there. You've got all these people. Troy Evans is in there. Jesse Ventura is in there. Glenn Shaddix, who died, I know, at the beginning of the century, but they've all got these really special roles in this thing. And I think you knocking them for being what they are in this role, I think is wrong.
Anything that the cast has given to this film, I would say that Rob Schneider more than enough, equals mellows it all out, so it's a net zero. For my next exhibit, you mentioned Pizza Hut for a subject change. I feel bad for you because I've seen the clips of that, and it is so poorly photoshopped on. I don't know why Taco Bell was just inaccessible to Europeans at the time. But is the script really?
Probably because we didn't have one.
That's true. Just like Mexico, we're the only ones. And when we go to Taco Bell, we wear trench coats and sunglasses, and we hope nobody around sees us. I wonder if the script is really that brilliant, because anything you perceive as being clever, I would like to remind you of some of the things the script also does. It thinks he'd lose his head if it weren't attached is very subtle foreshadowing. It gives odd exposition crammed into scenes about how people behave in the future. The future is not a place that feels lived in here at all to me, that Stallone has to figure out. It's a very fake stage where all the pieces don't fit together. It feels very Schumacher-esque to me. It's like a fun house with wacky swear jar machines and goofy buzzers being posted on every wall pole and mailbox, and all the furniture sort of looks like cheese graters. And like in any Wes Anderson film, no person talks like a real person, and it thinks that 36 years is like a long enough time for people to completely forget about violence, to completely forget about sex, even though some of these people are very much alive in Stallone's time, when he came from. It's not long enough. It doesn't connect. It has cars that identify the driver. It's smart enough to do that, but it doesn't stop the criminal from actually driving that police car. It has a car that safely deploys foam after a crash, but it only deploys after a high-speed chase with gunfire and the car, hitting walls and stuff as it's going around. It has weird VR sex that you think might be subversive and clever, but it's immediately followed by pointless full frontal nudity when some girl apparently calling some other guy randomly buck naked in a world that doesn't have sex, I would remind you, just to sort of make up for the fact that they interjected this weird VR thing in the scene before, because we're big manly men and we need manly men sex in our movie. And honestly, what the hell were those scenes about? My tone may be quasi-facetious, you may say, but I ask you, jury, in these moments in the film, is it being incredibly smart, or is it being incredibly dumb?
Well,
Simon,
first of all,
like to reply?
and I want to ask this question, you may not put it in, but I want to ask you how old you are.
39.
Okay, so you were, 3 when this was out? Let me remind you of when
That's
this
a little older than that.
Huh? Is that right?
I was a little older than that, but I didn't see this film until, I think, 5 years ago.
No, how old were you when this came?
almost
Anyway,
10.
they've got my maths
Yeah,
wrong.
around 10.
10. But anyway, when this film came out, this was one of the few films that really began to look at it in a humorous way and look forward to it in a humorous way. So we've got to be careful of bringing this film, I know, forward to this time. But I love watching it because you go back to 1993 and you have to remember how amazing it was at that time. Now, when Daniel Waters, who wrote Demolition Man, wrote this thing, I think he was bringing it forward to a new place. And he did, again, the humor he mentions in there, I mentioned the mention of Arnold, I talk about Taco Bell, I talk about all these events in there, the fact that they have seashells for what works in the bathroom, the fact they have all these things all the way through, I think for them was a remarkable thing to do. You didn't get that kind of forward view that you got nowadays, because everyone does that nowadays. But Demolition Man was one of the first films to do that back in 1993 or whatever it was. Yeah, 1993. So I think you have to look at what that was doing then. So that's the very important thing. And again, though, I will bring it back again to the cast. All of the cast were doing what they did in their own roles. And that's what I think makes it very, very special. You know, for me, I think Sylvester had a very good role in that thing, because what he did was he played himself in the middle. Everything else around was going bang and crash and all of this, and he played himself just in the middle of it himself. Wesley Snipes played himself just in the middle when they crashed and they all destroyed each other or whatever. I think that was the thing that they all did. So what I think you're doing is looking at it now, but not looking at it then. And you've got to look at it then.
Well, if someone commits murder, and it was like normal to commit murder like 50 years ago, are we saying that that's okay? I mean, a film needs to be sort of, aware enough of itself of how it might be perceived in future generations, rather than just making it sort of in a vacuum for this current year. As far as these, go ahead.
No. My argument to that is this again. It may be in a set time of 2030 something, 2032, I believe it is. Anything that they do in that period is meaningless in terms of that. They just give it a name. It could be 3032. It could be anywhere. What they're doing, I think, is just delineating a period that they could do there. And when the first thing is that Arnold went to Arnold. I keep calling him that because I've mentioned Arnold.
You're lucky he's not here. He'd punch you square in the mouth.
Because actually Arnold was going to appear in the film anyway if Sly Stallone didn't, because they always had battles and Stallone got the part. But anyway,
he was too busy doing Last Action Hero, which did the same thing.
Oh yeah, that's exactly. But his was a lot worse. Last Action Hero was a lot worse. But I think
that's a case for another day.
Damn, I wish we had done the head-to-head now.
I think
You'll have to quickly pivot, Ben.
I think we would all agree about that. The Last Action Hero was a lot worse.
Shots fired.
But what I think Sly Stallone did there, I think, was the first kind of incident of them looking forward. And I think Sly actually realized he was getting older, all of this. And I mean, he's 70-something now. And I think he was realizing that was coming towards him. And I think this was kind of one of his last action heroes, shall we say. And I think this, when you look at all the people in there, apart from, Wesley being in prison, I think he was doing the same. And I think they all came together because of that. And I think it was let's not forget, it was a massive hit as well. It did about 160 million in the US, which was an amazing amount for that period. So I think we need to look at the time itself.
What I'd like to ask from the bench, what I think the prosecution is bringing up, is: do you feel they craft a plausible future
for me? Is that
for the world?
Does it world build enough?
Does this future feel realistic?
For me, I think it does, but it's meant to be. It's like watching the Flintstones. Everything about it is a little bit freaky, a little bit crazy, and that's it. But you don't take it as the times that they put in there, because that's just what's the word?
This is an arbitrary number.
Yeah, it's an arbitrary amount, and I think no one picks that up and goes, oh, well, that's the thing they're talking about, because everything about it is humorous in that world. And I think when you have Arnold move in, I'm doing it again now. When you have Sly move into it, I think that's just this secret, this different world, and it could be anywhere in the the timing of the world.
All right, I'm gonna toss this back to Mr. Haslar to present another exhibit.
My last exhibit is sort of the scheme, the plot. It revolves around some rich dude who's like a pope in this society, and he reforms society, and his plan is to de-thaw Wesley Snipes to assassinate a leader of a group who he hasn't yet had influence over. And this has got to be one of the dumbest schemes in cinematic history, right up there with unleashing a team of supervillains to hunt down another supervillain like the Joker. Like, what could possibly go wrong? He brings back this homicidal maniac who lived 4 decades ago, who would be a fish out of water in this woefully outdated he'd be woefully outdated in this world, whose goals do not match up with his own, and programs into this man all the passwords into the city so he can break into pretty much whatever he wants, and kung fu like Neo in the Matrix, safeguards that wasn't programmed into any other cops for some unexplained reason. And his only safety in this is Snipes has the inability to kill him. But Snipes then asks him, like, hey, why don't you unthaw some of my buddies? And these buddies of mine aren't programmed to not to kill you. So guess what happens almost immediately? Yeah, great plan, dude. This whole plot just revolves around this guy being incredibly stupid. And all of this programming into Snipes is done with the same dumb exposition with the rest of the film. Like, tell me, how did you know the password to the cuffs, Dennis Rodman? It's not exactly what I would say if I were being choked to death, but they have to explain it all to us. And hey, now we have the dual purpose in the script of having guys who can shoot at Stallone, but they're all missing, like stormtroopers, and nothing hits him because he's a big manly man, and manly men don't get shot or wounded. These stormtroopers, they miss, no joke, at point blank range. And at that, I rest.
All right. I do think you need to talk to somebody about this manly men thing.
Manly men.
But thank you, Mr. Haslar. You have now rested. Simon, you may present your first exhibit in defense of the film.
Yes. So for mine, I will start again at the cast. It has everyone in there. You have all the people who, we've already mentioned, plus, let me see. We've got Benjamin Bratt, we've got Dennis Leary, we've got Nigel Hawthorne, we've got Jet Black, we've got everyone you've got, and they're getting into this because they realize that not just that it's paying them a good deal of money because Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone are in it, and that's going to raise it up, but they're coming along because they realize themselves that it's humorous. It's all in the what's the word? It's all based on the humor. Anyone who looks at it from a separate point of view, I think, is looking at it from the wrong point of view. If you're not just as Sandra Bullock's, when she does all her her stories, things about the past, she is coming at it from the right way. She's talking about it in a way. And what it's doing, it's looking back at our life here. And she is coming back and says, all this crazy stuff you do then, that doesn't happen in this world here. And I think that's incredibly important. The second thing, I think, is we don't look at the director, Marco Brambilla, who... this was his first role as a director. I think it was only 1 or 2 of them because he moved into the art world, and he brought in, to me, that artistic event. So if you look at the set of this film as well, I think that is incredible, and it all came from him. So I think that's another side to it we should mention. I do think as well we should look at the fact that everything here is just about coming true. We've got the fact that we've got
seashells.
Well, the seashells maybe not, but now we've got the Japanese butt cleaner. When you go and have one of those, it's
Damn it, you stole my closing exhibit. I was going to go into that.
oh well, there you go. You see, you're going to have you've got the all those events that are going on there. You've got coming through, and even like I mentioned earlier, the COVID event that we are still going through, but particularly the last few years, we had that going on, and that was all about people being at home, being quiet, doing their job, and not really getting involved with anybody else. So I think this factor, everything is coming true, is something that we need to hold. And my last thing there is a sequel is being promised. Now, whether that happens or not, who knows? But I think that is one of the things that a sequel tells us, that I think this film probably was a success. So I think with all these events in there, we've got excuse me, we've got enough anyway for me to defend this. Whether people think very differently of it, I can accept, but I think there's enough about this film to be able to take it to the next stage.
Mr. Haslar, any rebuttals to these points?
I have
especially
several.
To the point of the film being more of a comedy.
Well, okay, yeah, I agree. It's more of a comedy. But to get to like the characters, leaning into those comedic tropes, like Sandra Bullock, they're all just like sort of meant to be foils to Stallone. They don't really take any of these people seriously. Sandra Bullock has like pictures of like a poster of like Die Hard in her office. Apparently she's seen this. She's like obsessed with the time that Stallone came from. And yet things like sex like revile her. And she's like surprised by the very suggestion of it. They didn't take the thought of thinking, hey, she knows about this. She wouldn't go like, oh yeah, in your time, this was normal, wasn't it? I'm sorry. Let me take a step back, like she would have if she'd seen Lethal Weapon. Sorry, did I say Die Hard? Lethal Weapon. So none of these characters are well thought out. Stallone's the only one that's fleshed out. It sort of predicts the future, but I would argue it does so accidentally. I don't think that anyone on this script was like Nostradamus thinking, you know what? I think Laserdisc is going to turn into DVD someday. They just happen to fall ass backwards into this thing. So it's luck. It's not skill. And as far as the sequel baiting, a lot of films do sequel baiting. Green Lantern did sequel baiting. That was a terrible movie. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen did sequel baiting.
Hey, we don't know about that one. Actually, we don't know about either of those.
Yes.
I think that Matthew Broderick Godzilla film did sequel baiting. Russell Crowe's Robin Hood did sequel baiting. So yeah, everyone wants to make more money, and like if there's a sequel, then everyone gets another paycheck. That doesn't imply that the film that we're seeing here today is a good one.
Question from the bench: is the film set up a sequel, or are they just talking about a sequel now?
I think they're talking about a sequel now, and they are saying that it is not just baiting, as you mentioned, and I agree that I think that's an unlikely view for some Robin Hood, for example, which is one of the worst films ever made. But
which Robin Hood? There's a few.
The Russell Crowe one.
The Russell Crowe, okay. But the Kevin Costner one's fine.
And Russell Crowe's one where he had as many accents in there as he, which is amazing. But
we are scared of Russell Crowe here, so I don't want to say
Russell Crowe is Russell.
But not
that
of
will be
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Simon's next
apparently.
episode, I think.
Plus, I'm a big fan of his movies.
Russell Crowe is actually born on the exact same day as me, so. There you go.
Wow.
Perfect.
Yes. Anyway.
And he didn't get you anything.
We're both coming up to our 60th. Anyway, but enough of that because that hurts me rather a lot. The other thing that...
Said the guy who asked me how old I was.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, but he gave it up, Ben. He gave up. That's
true. It's true.
That's quid pro quo.
So, but have you finished?
Ben?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ben will go all night.
The floor is yours, sir.
No, I want to come back again to the director, who I think you're saying that he only decided to do these things there because I think you said he fell ass backwards into them, which I don't know what that means, but hey. Um, but Marco Brambilla, I think, was a lot more intelligent than that, and that's quite frankly why he probably stopped doing films, because he'd had enough of them and he'd moved into art and other things. But I think he had used this as an example. He wasn't using it as a kind of, oh, that's our big thing and we're going to talk about the world and everything's going to be true. But he put in little things like this in there, so you could see a bit of what happened in our life now and how it carried on. And I think that is important for him. And what I will do, again, I forget the sequel, forget Marco Brambilla, forget everything being true. You've got the cast, which is stellar, absolutely stellar, and you can't even argue with that. You might argue with how they're performing, but you can't argue with the fact that this is not a stellar cast. And the humor, and I believe you put those together, and you add the Sly Stallone kind of blasting his way, and Wesley Snipes blasting his way, and I think you have probably the last, or certainly one of the last great films of that action humor story going on. And I think that is the key. If you have that cast and that humor together, I think that will be the promise that this has got.
All right, and are you going to rest on that?
I believe I will, but mainly because I'm not making any sense. But
you've made lots of sense, a lot more than Ben. All sides have rested. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Haslar, you may begin.
Members of the jury, it's time we murder, death, kill this film. It is the epitome of 90s comic book movies. It doesn't take itself seriously enough. The plot is inane. There's not a moment of this film where I actually believe what I'm seeing on screen is really happening. Every device, every death, the way people talk, it's all fakey, fakey, fake, fake, fake. This is phase 5 of Marvel, where everything is either self-parody or wacky just for the sake of it. Rambo had his time. Terminator 2's apex has passed. Now it's just a star clinging to the threads of a once great tapestry. And as Simon rightfully pointed out, the seashell thing should be obvious to anyone who has visited Japan. They're clearly the buttons to a bidet and drying system, unlike the barbaric, unsanitary toilet system we have here in the West. I special ordered myself one of these bad boys for my bathroom, and every time I stay in a Western hotel, I pine for my civilized space toilet, and you should all get one too. Be well, jury. Thank you.
Does Ben really have a space toilet?
Of course he does. It is more than I wanted to know about. More than I wanted to know about him. Thank you, Mr. Haslar. Mr. Majumdar, please present your closing argument.
Well, before I do that, may I just say that I actually agree there, because I also have one of these Japanese toilets, and I think they're
high five, my man. High five.
Have weird space toilets. That's cool.
Only on Reels of
Justice. I feel
Justice.
a little closer to you right now, Simon. This is great.
I think the bidet there was. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that now. I think that I've mentioned everything that I wanted to do. The cast I've talked about so many times. The humor, for me, is of its time, and that's the key we've got to look at. You don't look at the fact that, the fact is that it's only 6 years away or 10 years away from it now. You look at it as a wider thing. The dates that they put in the film themselves, I think, are meaningless. So let's not look at that. You look at the humor, and I think that is the key. Yes, you have the battles of Sly and Wesley, but that, I think, is kind of within this world, because they're all getting, They're all getting denied some of the things that they want to do from now in those days. And I think there's lots of those things going on. So I think for me, you look at this film as maybe it's of its time. But that doesn't mean that it's not great because of it. And I think that's true of all films from all times. You can look at them as well in the time that they're being made. And I think from that point of view, this film is something that is remarkable, which I think is which you may agree with, but on a different point of view. But I think this is a film that I think right now the sequel is being promised, and that's because people are saying that it's been done as a really, really, it's being seen as a really good film from the time that it's been made. And so I wonder if the sequel will be any good, but I think that the original film was.
Hey, thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, Mr. Maynard Bangs, and Mr. Murder, Death, Kill, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
But those right there. And while you're deliberating, I need to run to the store to get some seashells before that next pandemic hits.
I know, I'm hoarding those seashells.
Okay, gentlemen, I like this movie.
Wow.
Hey,
It's
okay.
so stupid that it turns a corner and becomes smart. It's one of those. It's kind of hard to describe what watching this movie is like now compared to when it came out in 1993. But this is satire, and I tend to think it's good satire. But at the same time, there is so much rampant idiocy in this movie. And Ben hit on basically every single issue that I have, even if I don't necessarily agree in the way that it was communicated. I think that that's ultimately what's pulling me through this conversation. Dylan, what are you thinking?
I'm kind of where you at when you. Excuse me. I'm kind of where you're at there, Ryan, because Ben did point out a lot of the deficiencies of this film, a lot of the stuff that was stupid. But like Simon was leaning on, the cast, the humor. It is satire.
I'd like to
without
respond.
proving what the cast did that was so good, just that
That's
it's
true.
a good cast.
Even Simon said that you might not like their performances, but you like the cast. I don't care what the cast is like if I don't like their performances.
I like the performances, though.
I like Wesley's because I think it's over the top and silly enough. But what I want to register is, as far as Ben's points of being dumb, I thought it was intentionally supposed to be funny. Like that, the fact that it's only 36 years, right? Like,
oh, no, that's not the dumb part. I was more referring to the nitpicky stuff about like how the whole high speed chase could happen and then the foam comes out,
it is
like
sort of an unrealistic.
Yeah, like little things like that. And it's like, why would they have why would there be torture protocols to even put into the prison? Those things that Ben was talking about. No, I think it being 36 years is actually really brilliant because you instinctually say there's no way things can change that fast. But now that we're all older, we do realize that, you know what? Things do change that fast. We're only one generation away from those kind of things changing. And that's what Sandra Bullock's character illustrates so well. But yeah, this movie gets a lot of credit for being pretty... what's a big word I can use? Perspicacious, and I maybe lean towards Ben's point of view that like some of it might just be accidents. Like, yeah, laser discs will get smaller. Okay. But when Simon was talking about like how this resonates now in the post-COVID world, I think it does give it a bit more of more worthy of a second look. It's like, yeah, this was pretty out there for 93, but now here we are 2020 on. It's like, well, they were more right than wrong on a lot of this stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Rob, I want to hear what you have to say.
So I think the comedy is the strength of this film.
Agree.
Yes, I would agree.
Which makes it sort of a pre-idiocracy. But then, as Ben brought up, then you've got to sit through the action. And a lot of it's dumb. And I love Jesse Ventura. It's hard to make Jesse Ventura look dumb, but they kind of did it.
Well, the action is indifferently shot as well. Like you could tell that that's not what the director cares about.
Yeah, it's
but that's something that he had to do to get that movie made.
Yes.
Right. And let's think about the poster. People are showing up wanting an action film, Sly and Wesley, and then probably not as much as parody stuff. But a lot of it is pretty funny, except for Dennis Leary. Nothing Dennis Leary does this whole movie is funny.
He's just being Dennis Leary.
He's just doing a bit. It's like he's just
It
doing
does sound like it's just like they
Dennis
pulled him
Leary.
right
That's
off
all
of
he's in.
Comedy Central and threw him
If
in.
Dennis Leary was a mole man, he'd be this character.
yeah. He's just doing like one bit from No Cure for Cancer. I'm an
He's
asshole.
he's 2 seconds away from singing "Asshole."
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I do think Snipes and Stallone, their physicality on the screen with their bulging muscles and their actual physical fighting, I think that is good. I think it's the shooting and stuff that's a little weak, the car chase. I mean, during the car chase, he's explained to him, oh, the people are already dead, which is another thing Ben brought up. It's like they keep shoving exposition in.
And why make
when
him
you
feel
don't-
better? When he did that too, it's like, why make him feel better?
Yeah, no,
he felt guilty for
thinks
screwing
he killed
up.
those people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't
It's like,
don't
why
tell
you
him
let
he
him off
did
the
it.
hook?
And I'm glad we're talking about Wesley Snipes because I noticed in this viewing that one of Simon Phoenix's crimes is tax evasion. And that's what Wesley Snipes went to prison for.
I love
Yeah,
Simon Phoenix too. Simon Phoenix in general, I think, is
Great
just
character.
one of the better villains of the '90s, and he raises this movie up. And a lot of the time, you can watch this movie and you know it should have been Schwarzenegger. Like when Sly's naked in the tube, like it clearly was supposed to be Arnold doing the Terminator naked thing again.
Yeah, but Simon was right that they were competing so much for so many roles. Actually, a little bit of
So
trivia.
much Stallone gooch.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger actually put the word out that he was interested in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. So Sylvester Stallone fought really, really hard for it, and that movie was terrible. And Schwarzenegger,
He laughed.
He's like he trolled him so bad. So like they were.
Okay,
doing
we
that
don't
to
have
each
time
other.
for that.
Okay, I'm
that
sorry,
kind of stuff now. But
Just read a whole book about it.
oh, and side note, I watched the Pizza Hut cut,
I also did watch the Pizza Hut
and
cut.
I thought
Ben's right. It's terribly
I thought I was
edited.
having a Mandela effect moment. I went, this used to be Taco Bell, right? It used to be Taco
I know,
Bell.
so-
And thank God Simon told me
Yeah,
'cause
it's
that-
the European version. Yeah,
that it's
that's true.
European.
And you could see the mouth. It's a terrible overdub.
It really is. And I had no idea what
I'm
was
so
going on
glad
with
we did this movie on the show. This is a fun case.
that. It is a
good
fun one. All right, are we going to start locking in?
Yeah, let's start locking it in. Dylan?
All right. Man, I love big manly men movies like this.
You don't have to say movies.
He's right. I love big manly men. I am a big manly man. I love myself. I'm
He
worthy
only
of
buys
love.
brawny paper towels.
And what's tough for me is that Ben did bring up a really good case, though. And I do think I want to lean on the strengths of those arguments because they do kind of change the movie when you watch it. And I think the movie is smarter than people think, but I think within that they are doing some dumb stuff as well. So I want to give Ben the nod for having the better case tonight. So I'm going guilty.
All right.
Rob?
I was really looking forward to this watch, and I did like this film a little less than I have in some previous watches. So to me, it's a tale of two movies. You've got the comedy, satire, that stuff is all of this insane future world that can't happen, but like it's part idiocracy. And then you've got the action movie, which is really paint by numbers. To me, that action stuff keeps it from ever being a great movie, but I think it's good enough to get through this court. So I'm going to say not guilty for the comedy, but not Dennis Leary.
Well, when I was watching this movie again, all I could think for the entire runtime was, I'd rather be watching Tango and Cash. And I really
Cobra.
like what Ben brought to the conversation. I think Simon had some good points, but like again with the cast, just pointing out that it's a good cast without pointing out what they did that was so well. And looking at the movie is like, if it's prophetic, well, it's not necessarily. Like a lot of the stuff that it supposedly predicted, they leaned into on accident. It's like saying that The Simpsons predicted Disney owning 20th Century Fox because of one short little gag that was meant to be a joke. That's not a prediction. That's a joke. So I'm going to have to lock it in.
It's a warning, not a prediction. It could be this bad.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah.
So I am going to lean into how I felt listening to this conversation. So I'm going to go guilty.
Oh, you're a hard man.
So let's go tell that supposedly good-looking judge.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Jeez.
I say nice things about him all the time.
Yeah,
you
that's
do, I
all
mean.
you do is talk shit about me constantly. Jeez, how can I be bitter about it?
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, you asshole. In the case of the People versus Demolition
The
Man,
guy in the other room!
we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie.
Remorse.
The verdict is so rendered. I, of course, hereby declare that this film be cryogenically frozen for 36 years, where it will receive reprogramming on how to be a better movie, and then we'll thaw and hope that it is more appreciated in that time. Court is adjourned.
Oh, should I do Sly or Arnie? Have I done
Care.
Dealer's choice.
Sly? This is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Damn, my God, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Reporting you live from the Reels of Justice. I am so happy that my arch nemesis Sylvester Stallone's movie was found guilty. That is me, Arnold Schwarzenegger, laughing. Big Ben Haslar. Tell me how you feel about this verdict. Are you as overjoyed as I am?
No, I take no pleasure in this, Arnie. I did kind of like this movie. I just had to do my job and do it to the best of my ability. I did like Simon's case. It's always a pleasure to have him in the courtroom, and I've listened to his podcast. It's great. You should listen to it, Eat My Globe. So it's always a pleasure to have him around. Thank you so much for the sparring match, sir.
To hell with you then. Simon Majumdar, come here. I am Arnold Schwarzenegger, in case I did not make that clear. How do you feel about today's verdict?
I'm disappointed, but I understand. I think here's the thing. I think if everybody watches Demolition Man and has their own view about it, it'll be fine. And whether you think it's going to be a good film or not, it's going to be fine because I still like it.
Well, that's very good. I heard you did not like The Last Action Hero. That cannot be true.
No, I like Arnie, but I don't think I like that film at all, if I remember rightly. And
Very brave of you to say it in front of what's clearly actually Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And back in the day when I used to work for Penguin Books, we published the book of Last Action Hero, not the book of Demolition Man. So I feel very bad about that.
Well, don't worry about it. I'm sure it was great. So now let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. I am Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Once
Always
again,
a good impression when you have to point out who you're playing. Like
I think so.
like Rich Little, like Rich Little saying, "I'm Richard Nixon." Like, thank you, Rich.
I could have done my Nixon.
Schwarzenegger.
I will now do my impersonation of Ronald Reagan, the President of the United States. Hello, I am Ronald Reagan. Andy Kaufman had the best ones. Interesting verdict. I had almost thought I was going to be giving the guilty sort of nod because, yeah, whenever it's not doing the funny future stuff, I'm kind of done.
It is a little long.
I'm bored.
But it was good, though. It was a good case from both of you guys, and I'm glad we got to we always need to do more
And
action
Simon, you're totally
movies.
right. Even if the movie was a bad movie, people can still love it.
Absolutely.
People love lots of bad movies. That is totally fine.
Especially you.
I love bad movies, like almost exclusively. But interesting case. So, Simon, what has been keeping you busy lately? What have you been up to?
Gosh, well, I've been doing a lot of demos around the United States, and that has
You're a
been,
demo man.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of cooking demos and that sort of thing. So I've been doing those. I've been doing a lot of filming. So I won't say what we've been filming, but we've been doing a lot of those. I've been doing the podcast, as you saw. It just finished just now with a perfect one because, you know, we're talking about Christmas, so we're starting to look at cakes. So we did, the last one was cakes, but we did Alex Guarnacelli and we did interviews. So we did 4 essays or features that I wrote and then 4 interviews. And some of them are really people I didn't know terribly, like Rosso Anastopoulos, who wrote about how pies created America. So she talked about how the pies, which was really, really fantastic. So we've been doing that. So we've been doing a lot of stuff. And then I'm off to Seattle on Wednesday, and that'll be my last thing of the year. And then we start again on, so we've got a lot of things to keep us very, very busy. But I want to say that I'm very pleased that you're to be asked on Reels of Justice, because I always have a great deal of fun, even if I can't remember what I'm supposed to be saying, which is very But
We stick you on the hot seat. We do it to everybody. We're unfair.
yeah,
Well, we love having you, Simon.
Yeah,
that's
we
for
love
sure.
having you. And
Yeah, no, and Eat My Globe, it really does scratch me right where I itch as far as the history of food. The way you go into depth in it, I'm sad it took me so long to get to it because, except now I got this great backlog to go through. But yeah, I love that show.
well, as today that we're speaking is what is it? The 18th. This is
It's clearly near
Jacques Pepin's-
January.
Huh?
oh yeah, it's January.
We're in January. Happy New
January,
Year!
sorry.
Yeah,
You can hear the
it's
buzzers
already 2024, Simon. Don't you know that? It might even be February. I don't know. I'm really
Well,
bad at knowing what month it is.
You can have this all ignored, but we've got lots and lots of things. Some of the interviews that we've done in the past, Andrew Zimmern, Jacques Pepin, Rocco Despirito, we did this. Yeah, they've all been phenomenal interviews, and hopefully my features have been the same. So hopefully people enjoy that. And then I'm also writing a book. It'll be my fourth book, but it's going to be a lot more serious. But I can't tell you about that yet. But it's going to be a very serious book. On
Oh, we're gonna have you back. For
100% looking forward to that. And Simon, I loved your episode about chicken. The most interesting fact I've ever learned is that humans domesticated chickens before we started eating them. That blew my mind.
Well, because
just for the eggs, right?
Well, also because the
Cheap
fact
labor.
the fact that the chickens went around the world wasn't because of eating the chicken or the eggs. It was because of cockfighting, which took it everywhere in the world. And that
So
was
when
the
someone
key.
says what comes first, the chicken or the egg, you can say
Cockfighting.
And also we gave a thing about the what came first, the chicken or the egg. And the thing is that the chicken came first in some cases, but they're going the egg might have come first if it was a mixture of the chicken and another bird. And so it's
Like
it's
two
a
different
lot more-
birds making a chicken.
Yeah,
egg.
so it's very difficult to try and describe. But I can't remember. But it's first mentioned in a 1917 book that first mentions it, and that's. But I'll leave you to go and listen to it to go and find out.
Oh, yeah, it's a brilliant episode. It's amazing how much stuff you pack into one episode. It's insane.
I hope there is a history of sake episode for Ben.
Ah.
Yes, there's a lot.
I know a good guess for you if you do want to go into
I was going
sake.
to say, we know like the top sake experts in America, believe it or not. They were on the show.
And
We all get all the top people.
There's a lot of people who have been on the show, and we've done 100 episodes now.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. We've been doing it a lot. But as I said, we're doing a lot of demos. We've got more filming in the new year. We've got we've got more
Right
filming now.
Yes!
Yes, there it is.
There you go.
Thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
Can't you tell I'm on television?
Yes.
Yes.
Guy Fieri looks pissed.
He's mad right now.
I will tell you, Guy Fieri is one of the most kind people I've ever met in my life. He really is.
Every single person says that.
That's awesome.
Very consistent about that
Yes.
guy. That
He
he is
really-
I
just
only hear
really-
good things.
Really is. So that's what I've been doing, and so I'm writing this book, and then as well, I'll try and get some rest in between. I hope.
Yes, awesome. Now we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. So Simon, what is a movie you think people should see?
Well, I think I've always mentioned kind of Indian movies, and I want to do that again because one of the series I've started, it's two. What's the word? Two movies. The first one is called Bahubali, which you may have seen on Netflix. It's they do it. Obviously, they have the Telugu, I think, is the language it's actually produced in, but they also have it in English on Netflix. And then Bahubali 2, and what they create. This is the most
Electric
action-
Bahubalu.
No.
This is the most action I've ever seen in a film. It is extraordinary when you see. Wait, I'm not going to describe it, but if you do go and see it. It is so, what's the word? It's like watching a movie about the Indian gods and all of that. It is so special. So go and see it.
Cool.
It's a Bahubali, Bahubali. And when you go and see it, it is really a great film. Do try and see both films though. On
Did you say it was on Netflix too? Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I always like mythology, and all the mythology of like the Hindu religion is very, very deep and cool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've been looking for one too.
Well, go and watch this. It's on Netflix. It is. It's so I can't really because it's you look at it and it is so it makes anything done in the American market right now as if it's not happening. It's so special. So special.
Rama's my favorite guy because he's a big manly man.
Oh,
I like, or is it Brahma? You mean Brahma?
No, Rama, the hunter.
Rama was I come from an Indian background. Rama was, Brahma is the guy who basically creates the world, and Rama is one of his followers, as it were.
I like the strong one. I like that. So that's cool. Big Ben, what have you got for us?
Gentlemen, listeners, it is my absolute pleasure to recommend to you this week another film that is showing up American films and what is easily one of my top 5 films of the year and also easily one of my top 5 Godzilla films, despite what supposed Zilla Zealot or Kaiju Gaiju Rob Maynard might tell you, and that's what? Godzilla -1. Like the OG Godzilla film and Shin Godzilla, -1 takes us into territory where this massive mutant shines best. Horror, man versus monster, where the monster has heaps of symbolism he's embodying. In this case, he's the actualization of collective guilt Japan felt because of World War II and how, as a result, they were absolutely decimated at zero. And this back to basics approach absolutely slays. But true to the heart of the movie is the human characters, something most kaiju films get wrong. We follow an ex-soldier who chickened out on his kamikaze run, and because of that, people died. And throughout the film, we see him lost. He loses his will to live. Guilt weighs on his conscience, just as it's weighing on the collective conscience of most of Japan. And I don't want to give the climax of the film away. To suffice to say, it's one of the few where I can say I was on the edge of my seat as this guy finally gets into his cockpit of the plane to square off against Godzilla at the end, not knowing if he's planning to sacrifice himself for the greater good or has finally found his purpose to live, as he and a team of not soldiers but everyday Japanese people band together to save the country from destruction from a force that is convincingly portrayed as nigh invincible. It's fantastic. If you've seen the original film, you know how good Godzilla can be when he doesn't lean into his camp, and on that score, -1 absolutely delivers. I hear you smirking over there, sir. I stand by it.
Why are you trying to goat me?
I've been holding
Maynard. You gotta see it before it leaves theaters. I end.
Well, Maynard, before you respond to that,
I'm not responding to it.
How about you give us your recommendation?
I'm just going to talk about my recommendation.
There we go.
My recommendation this week is also something new I saw recently. 2023's Suitable Flesh, starring Heather Graham and Barbara Crampton. A beautiful psychiatrist, Graham, naturally, because when I think Heather Graham, I think medical professionalism. Graham is used to men only being interested in her body, but she finds herself in a torrid affair with a patient who really wants her for her body. Based on the H.P. Lovecraft short story, The Thing on the Doorstep, this will absolutely scratch your itch for cosmic horror and softcore porn in one go.
Ooh.
Finally. Heather Graham has been keeping it tight, you go girl, and I think horror is a fantastic genre for her at this stage in her career. I hope she makes herself well at home. Barbara Crampton is, of course, fantastic, though maybe underutilized. And can you say cameos? For our MST3K fans, you should, of course, be on the lookout for the one and only Jonah Ray, who appears alongside the film's director, Joe Lynch. Fun fact, they both also appeared in the Hatchet sequel, Victor Crowley, though not together. And, of course, fans of this show should be on the lookout for friend of the podcast, Graham Skipper, of course, so entrenched in the cinematic world of Lovecraft and Stuart Gordon, rest in peace. You couldn't do a Lovecraft movie right without Graham.
We love Graham.
Skipper, I mean, not Heather.
Oh.
Though you should call her, too. Anyway, 2 grams for the price of 1. I can't recall what the average street value of that is, but suitable flesh is currently available for rent or purchase on the platform of your choice, but not Tubi.
Boo! I also lament that my recommendation's not on Tubi.
Good. Well, then why don't you give it to us?
Well, why don't I go ahead then? So, Maynard, as you know, there's a certain magic you can only get from animated features. And if you truly believe that, like I do and Ryan does, then you know the master magician is none other than Hayao Miyazaki. His latest effort is 2023's The Boy and the Heron. And what can be said in these mere few sentences that can do justice to an artist bearing his soul on screen for us? Yes, this film is pure Miyazaki imaginalia. No facet of his amazing career in animation is not touched on in this film. The story is redolent of his other works, of course, but in a way that feels full circle. This book ends with the likes of My Neighbor Totoro so perfectly, it is easy to see why this could be his last feature. But like all the greats, it is hard to hang it up. I suspect we will see more from our master magician before he sheds this mortal coil. But if this is his last work, then he's truly exiting in no finer fashion. Unfortunately, I suspect this will never be on Tubi.
Boo.
I actually saw it in theaters with my children, and seeing them experience the wonder of this on the big screen was worth it. Afterwards, my son said this was his favorite Miyazaki movie. I asked him why, and he said, because it is his best. Everyone clapped. A woman teared up and gave me a knowing nod, and the usher stopped cleaning the seats to marvel at my son's perspicacity. This is without a doubt...
Oh, you had that word ready.
No, actually, I changed insight to perspicacity because I said it earlier. This is without a doubt or equivocation my movie of the year. And thank God we were getting down to the wire here.
That's true. They came in strong. A couple of entries.
Couple entries very strong.
You either got Godzilla or you got Miyazaki.
And they're both Japanese.
But you guys both stole Ryan's recommendation, so we have to see what he is going to. So Ryan, send us on home strong.
It's a Charlie Bronson movie.
No, it's not a Charlie Bronson movie. Dylan. My recommendation this week concerns the most recent film from one of my favorite directors, Todd Haynes, 2023's May December. It follows an actress, played by Natalie Portman, researching a Mary Kay Letourneau type, played by Julianne Moore, to prepare for playing her, layers there, in an independent film. Haynes gets plenty of satirical jabs in there, and there's a sufficient amount of camp, but the film is surprisingly sincere, anchored by a tremendous performance from Charles Melton, perhaps best known as one of those Archie kids on that stupid Archie show, as Moore's formerly underage student and current husband, hence the title. It's uncomfortable, to be sure, but Haynes is in the groove right now, from Carol to Dark Waters to The Velvet Underground, and he's aided mightily by cinematographer Christopher Blauvelt, lushly photographed in a way that is both striking and direct. Loved it. May December is currently streaming on Netflix. Yuck.
Wow, but pretty much all new movies from
that
us.
That never happens.
Very rare, but
not a single movie on Tubi either. What's wrong with us?
I know. And of course, Ryan, film had camp. Everyone knows camp makes movies better. So I think we can all agree with that. But with that, we're all out of show. But we want to thank our guest, Simon Majumdar, for joining us. Thank you so much, Simon.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm sorry I lost, but it was good to be part of it.
No one comes here and loses. Only the movies. You get to sleep at home tonight. The movies go into jail, Simon.
That cold.
You won't suffer at all.
You get to come back.
Yeah, we would love to have you back and discuss any other movie that you would like. And we hope everyone else will join us as well, as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Seashells!
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.